It's all game, fam. It's all part of the plan. They had no intentions on saving that woman's life because they wanted to take it. That's why they shot 8 times. You know, when they shot the first time, they probably downed her the first time. But let me hit her 2, 7, 8 more times for good measure. This is why they do all the shooting, because they shoot to kill. They don't care about preserving life. They want you dead. Now, it's also said that there was a lot of people out there. So there's several videos out there. One video is of a woman filming the cops, and she's like, yeah, that's the one who shot him. And she put the camera on the cop who she says that shot him. So there's also another video of the woman supposedly getting jumped by a group of guys. So the story is all over the place right now, but I did want to let y'all know what was going on. There is yet another incident of a police officer gunning down a black person. This is the 3rd police or officer involved shooting in Tallahassee in the last 2 months. Boy, my head hurt behind all this stuff, man. This is just, man, societies are supposed to go forward, not backwards. This country is one backwards ass nation. Y'all be careful out there, fam. Arm yourself. Do whatever you gotta do to preserve life. Get your respect. Be careful. Obey the law. But if someone treads on your rights,
God damn it.
If someone tries to impede on your freedom,
don't let it happen. Yeah. I'm saying,
spring is the time to
doing hella much
trails with old friends.
That's gonna ruin you anyway. I mean, shit.
Make the
what sense does it make for me to?
Industry's fastest engaging all.
Abide and try to convince motherfuckers that feel that say, like, if the officer pulls me over and hello sir, license and registration, yeah, here you are, sir. Yeah, my name is William Goodley. Yeah, so forth. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And yes, sir. And this motherfucker is still tossing you around and stop resisting, and you're not even. But excuse me, sir, I'm not. At that point, like when he's just doing this shit and you being respectable and all that. Fuck it, you banging my head against this motherfucking car anyway. Might as well, nigga. Yeah. Act up. Might as well do what you can. Just stand for yourself. Period. It's fucked up, cause motherfuckers shouldn't have to do all that. Like, if a motherfucker is being cooperative and respectful and with manners and all the shit, like, just treat me with respect and all the shit. But when you be respectful and all the shit and they still trying to plant dope on you or still treating you like you're lying to them and all that bullshit, it don't make no sense to just keep being yes sir, no sir. He's planting dope on you in front of your motherfucking face and you're still yes, sir. No, sir. You know, that's not right, sir. You shouldn't do, like, because at no time is this how you're acting now going to help you when you get to court. Sir, Your Honor, like, Because they still gonna put on the paper that you was being uncooperative and resisting and all that shit. So, nigga. But I don't have to get that type of advice. But that's what he just said. Like if they trying to impede your rights and all that shit, you know what to do.
You are now listening to 15 Minutes of Fame Radio.
Let's go! Alright, what city do we want? What do we want?
Alright, so check this out. Yo, fans, if you listening, yo, please, yo, email restoreorderpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Right? Email us some whack bars, screenshot it, send us a timestamp, do something.
Somebody actually sent me a whack bar. I forgot. Oh, yeah.
It was a
But
Tay-Rock
you
one?
didn't because you just said somebody.
I think he sent me a Tay-Rock one, but I didn't like it. Too many people had it, so I just stopped using it.
I wasn't.
But anyway, so...
It was a nigga that was
You just stopped using it, but you wasn't using it.
So...
Oh, that bullshit. Yeah, I have one too for next time.
Alright, so check this out. I just typed in a random battle rapper. This is the first battle that popped up, and I watched the whole battle, and I found this shit in the third round.
All right.
So let's get to it. We gonna just go right to the bar.
Just go right to it.
You told Wavy. Hey yo, you told Wavy, you the shit. He better make sure his toilet working. I'm like, man, that shit wasn't shit. I couldn't wait to tell this boy in person that I'm number one, that you number two. That mean I'm pissed that you doo-doo, dog.
What? The fuck? No. Ill left and came back like he was still gone. Nigga, what do you mean?
If a nigga said, you told a nigga I'm the shit, better hope that your toilet working, that was a trash ball. Briz said that to a nigga. So he started, this shit was like it was a trash ball that spawned the number one. Like,
because they trying to do a little reinvention of, if you smell something stanky, it's me because I'm the shit. That's niggas is trying to reinvent that, but that line is already there in existence. Nigga, if you smell something stinking, it's me because I'm the shit. Like,
yo, let's get to it. I mean,
but
yeah,
that's
you the shit. So he said, I'm pissed that you doo-doo, dog.
He said, I'm the one, and you number two.
So hold on, Briz said I'm the shit. I hope that your toilet working.
Do we need to fucking hear this again though?
Play it again.
no.
Let's play this again.
You told Wavy, hey yo, you told Wavy, you the shit. He better make sure his toilet working. I'm like, man, that shit wasn't shit. I couldn't wait to tell this boy in person that I'm doo-doo, dog. But
What?
Motherfucker said, I'm number one, and
That
you
you
number
number
two.
two.
I'm pissed that you doo-doo, dog.
I'm number one that you number two.
I'm pissed that you doodle, dog.
I'm number one that you number two.
He said, man, that shit wasn't shit.
Yeah. Ill.
He said, man, that shit wasn't shit.
Bro, look at
Yo, son. It's not really much to
doo-doo,
break down.
dog.
It's not really much we can break down. It's right in your face, but it's tough.
Motherfucker said, I'm the shit. And I hope that the toilet works.
I said that shit wasn't shit. I couldn't wait to tell this boy in person.
Toilet working boy in person. Niggas really be wanting
Nigga says that I'm number one, that you number two. I'm pissed that you doodle, dog.
Throw that,
That's y'all nigga, man.
That.
Young ill.
And that
Hella
was
ill.
found that to put it on whack ball and beat. And that shit is just that trash. And it came from one of my favorite niggas.
I like it.
That shit is trash. That's New York ill though, right? That's when he came back and sounded like he still needed a hug or something.
Came back like he sounded like he still needed a hug.
He would have looked like Ava with the beard and all that. Like Verb Von Dudes. The fuck?
Nah, I don't know. He had a beard? I don't even know about it. He did, right?
He had a beard. One that looked like Verb Von Doom.
Verb Von Doom.
I don't remember how that battle went.
The fucking bullshit out of here.
I don't remember how that battle went.
I'm glad he stopped calling stuff that shit.
Hopefully the rest of the battle.
Okay, I mean. Ninth baby mama cut. No, nigga, I'm not a part of that gang. That's Nino. Nino B got like, I don't know how many now, nigga. Then that nigga had 8 kids, 7 baby mamas. I'm sure that nigga number done grew now by now. I'm cool. I'm not a part of that gang. And that nigga baby mamas all know each other and be functioning and all the shit. That's that different type shit. Come on, Cuddy. Give me something good for my ears. Alright, how about I fell asleep on this book last night, though. Truthfully. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing this morning? I ain't finna do too much talking. I'm finna, finish listening to this book. I fell asleep like chapter.
The Story of the Ghetto Pimp by Donald Goines.
You missed the first 7 chapters. Hey, you got timestamp.
There was desperation in her voice.
On chapter.
But she was so weak that she knew it would have been impossible for her to even walk up on the corner, let alone catch a trick. Her tears soaked through my shirt as I carried her back to her room. Much later, after Jessie went to sleep, I went into my bedroom and dressed.
Pause was so long, I grew up.
After combing my hair, the way the girls liked to see it, I closed the door silently behind me and left the house. The kids running up and down the street waved in my direction.
A lot of blank spots
and 2 other guys from my gang met up with me and walked along until I came to the restaurant.
Straight up.
We stood outside and looked through the window.
Exactly. Yeah. This was the first book
taking
that
the customer's order.
That got
cautioning
me
the guys
into
not to
writing
follow
books.
me unless they saw me get into trouble. I entered the restaurant.
But hold on, okay. I heard all that already.
On her breath and figured I wouldn't kill her, she opened the floodgates again. I turned my back on her and slammed the door on my way out. I stormed down the hallway in a rage. My pregnant neighbor was coming into the hotel when I crossed the lobby. She smiled brightly at me, but I frowned down so tough that her friendly greeting froze on her face. I went downtown and started playing con with a deadly intent. I short-conned my way down one side of the street and back up the other side. After playing one supermarket cashier out of a 10 spot, I doubled back and got into another line and played another cashier out of another bill. We were having an Indian summer, and the day was too hot for good boosting without a shot box, so I just kept on playing stuff. Traffic was backed up on the streets, with workers changing shifts when I started back towards the track. The bars were full of workers cashing their checks. I cursed my youth with a passion. Had I been of age, I could have mingled in the bar rooms with those veteran prostitutes, and in my daydreams, I imagined myself the master of 50 hard-working whores. I strolled on down towards the pool room. That was one place I could get into without too much trouble. I could easily stand to lose $20 or more to improve my game. After all, I had close to $300 in my pocket. It was just dark when I emerged from the pool room. My bankroll was $15 shorter than it had been, but I counted that as cheap fees for learning how to play 9-ball good. On the back table in the pool room, a crap game was in the process of starting. I knew that it would start off with small bets, but as the night advanced, it would gradually accelerate until most of the players were wagering the don't-go money. I stopped and peeked through the ding-dong window on my way home and spotted my paltry whore. She was in the middle of the restaurant floor doing a bump and grind. 2 prostitutes leaning on the front of the building watched me closely. I spoke to them and continued on down the street. Back at the hotel, I pulled my suitcase out and rumbled around until I found my bag of tea. Removing 3 pairs of white, green, and red dice from the bag, I tossed them on the bed while I put the suitcase back up. Returning to the crooked dice, I made a few practice knocks with the bust-outs. I practiced switching the dice until my movement was so graceful I felt I could swindle the game without fear of being detected. I carried all 3 sets of dice with me, in case the houseman should change the color of the dice in the game. My nerves were tingling at the prospects of winning. I walked down the hallway with a light gait. Horson, wait a minute. You going up on the corner? I turned to see my neighbor waddling down the hall towards me. Her belly was protruding in front of her so far that she seemed deformed. She was grinning at me as if I were the expectant father. There was something about her that I liked, so I returned her smile. Actually, I wasn't in any rush. I wanted the game to be going full blast whenever I got back to it. Yeah, baby, I'm going up on the set. I took her arm and helped her down the stairs. Big as your stomach is, honey, I'm kind of curious about what you gonna have. Bull or elephant? She laughed and leaned on me. It was a gay sound, and I liked the huskiness in her voice. I'm a big girl, Horson. Look at me. Can't you tell? Everything about me is big. I tossed my hands in the air in mock alarm. You mean to tell me everything is large, honey? That deep, beautiful sound of gaiety escaped from her again. Yes, baby, she replied, smiling. Even that's getting large. But that's one problem I'll correct as soon as I drop this load. Without seeming to do it, I examined her closely. With the heels she wore, I was a couple inches under her. She inquired casually, now that you have smoked me over at close range with those bewitching eyes of yours, would you care to know my name? That is, and not having taken the time to ask her name. She sensed my embarrassment. Putting her arm around my shoulder, she drew me closer. Marie Wilson. That's my whore name, and my real name too, even though don't nobody call me that. They all call me Boots. Don't feel bad now.
Oh, yeah.
She admonished me.
Boots was...
I didn't know your name until your girl came to my room this afternoon and talked me to death. The night had grown chilly, so I slipped my arm around her waist as we walked. Boots waved to a couple of girls working out of a doorway, then snuggled closer in my arms as we walked up to the pool room. She looked at me sadly. I'd heard about you, Horson, before I ever knew who you was, and I think I know just what you need. My only regret is that I didn't meet you before I got pregnant. She walked off and left me staring after her in surprise. Before going into the pool room, I walked to the restaurant and peeked through the window. It wasn't too much of a shock for me to see my whore in her favorite spot. With a boy about my age, she was dancing in the middle of the floor. It wasn't hard for me to figure out why my trap money was shitty. I slowly walked back to the pool room. If the crap game went off the way I anticipated, I had one hell of a surprise in store for her.
Excuse you, boy.
The smoke was thick inside, and you could hear the sound of balls being broken open from the rack. Voices were raised in loud bantering, while shooters leaned across the tables, shooting with deadly eyes. The houseman stood behind a glass counter, selling pop and cigarettes, plus stale candy, to the few junkies sitting around, nodding. 3 street whores stood around the counter sipping pop, while they stared towards the back table, where their men were gambling. As I walked past them, I capped, "You want me to check and see if they done blowed the trap money?" A small, thin girl with a Coke in her hand shot back, "At least my man got some trap money to blow. That's more than that honky-tonk bitch you got it doing for you, yellow-ass nigga." My ears burned from her scream, and the loafers, sitting beside the wall, watching the pool players, broke out in laughter. A short, fat, brown-skinned hustler I played pool with sometimes remarked, "Horse can be awfully cold at times, Horson." I grinned at it. "You're right about that, Fat Daddy. But I brought that on myself," I replied, and kept on walking towards the crap table. I tried not to let it show, but I was warm. If I had anything to do with it, I was going to make sure her old man didn't have any money when I pulled up. I knew him by sight, plus that his name was Ray, but that was all I knew about him. The crap game was roaring when I got there.
Dirty Mac, that nigga.
I stood on the sidelines and watched the dice go around. It was mostly factory workers playing, with a sprinkling of hustlers.
Oh, I gotta go to work soon.
I realized that very few of the so-called hustlers
It's 11
really
o'clock.
wanted to get down. The game was ripe. Each shooter could pick up the dice and shoot them like he wanted to. If the fader didn't catch the dice, point seen, money lost. The dice finally
Shit
came
like
to Ray.
this, huh?
He got covered for $20.
I'm a good guy.
I groaned when he shot the
Not a
dice
bad guy.
out.
It
He
worked
was
here.
using the turn down, the same shot I was going
When
to
I
shoot.
go in and work
And
like
he knew
this,
what he was doing.
maybe they
My
don't
plans
know
for
who it
busting began to
is.
dim as I watched the diamond on his little finger.
Not till I
glitter.
get behind the
My
register.
diamond-studded watch needed some company,
Oh,
so I
okay,
promised
he
to buy
works
myself
here.
a ring in the morning if I won. The house had a limit on passes. After you hit 5 licks, you had to pass the dice. Ray jumped a 4 for his 4th shot. He tried to get faded for $120, but wouldn't anybody fade him. Since this was his last shot, I decided to try and set him up. I knew he was crap-wise, and also wouldn't catch a point if I covered such a bet, so I wouldn't have time to slip in the bust-outs. I stepped over beside him. "I got you faded for the 20, baby. I want some of that whole money you be getting," I said, talking hip out of the side of my mouth. "Wait a minute, Red, you ain't even faded." Putting on my good square grin, I smiled. "That's all right, house man. I got plenty more of them 7s. Get me on." That kid jive stung, but I waited till his money was in the houseman's hand with mine. I picked the dice up and shot them away from Ray so he couldn't catch them. The dice spun like tops, neither one turning off the 5 deuce I'd set them on. Ray almost broke my ribs trying to push me aside so he could catch the spinning dice. I braced myself, though, and he couldn't have moved me out of the way with a Mack truck. "7! yelled the gamekeeper. Shooter shooting 200. Ray stared at me angrily. His eyes were slits. Suddenly, he grinned. Boy, when you got me, you got a good one, he said quietly, then yelled, Bet the shooter hits. I couldn't get cover for but $50 the next shoot, then 20. The last two fades were for $10. I caught 4 on my last shot, and between the bets I could beat Ray to, I picked up $40 more on side bets. I jumped 4 and passed the dice. I waited until the dice had gone halfway around the table before I made another killing. A large, pot-gutted, light-skinned factory worker wearing bib coveralls was shooting. He had started with a $20 bet, hit, then shot the 40, hit, and now was trying to get on for the 80. I covered the whole bet, then prayed that he didn't come out the door with 7 or 11. When he caught 6, I bet 50 more around the board that he would miss. Ray was betting the odds, percentage and hunch, so he spread about 50 around the board that the shooter would miss. When the shooter turned the dice loose, I caught them and asked him to give me a shake. The dice I tossed back in his hand were bust outs. When he sevened out, I grabbed the dice and switched the proper ones back in the game. You sure know when to get down, kid. I mean get down, Ray said, and slapped me on the back. I didn't know if he'd seen me switch, but for the rest of the game, we both bet the same way. I was holding over $200 in my hand when Little Bit came barging up to the table. She grinned. Daddy, give me some money so I could eat. Looking up from the table, I growled, Eat when you break luck, bitch. She whirled around and ran out of the pool room angrily. 2 colored factory workers showed up with 3 white guys from the afternoon shift with fresh money. They must have played with Ray before because they were all trying to bet that Ray would hit. He couldn't get faded, so I tossed up $10 and winked at him. The dice came out with a 7. His thin woman squealed with joy. She was holding on tight to one of the white players. I tossed up another 10. Again a 7. I kicked his leg and held my right hand below the table and flashed the T.
That shit look ugly.
Putting 10 more on the table, I said, Ain't nobody gonna pass all night. If your money is long, the dice gonna show wrong.
That's how you gonna start.
Everybody around the table wanted to make a bet with me. Wait till he comes out and catches a point, I yelled. Then get your money down. I'm covering all bets. Ray tossed a 6. I laid him a $50 bet that he would miss, then laid 200 around the table. I didn't take any chances. When he came out, I caught the dice and tossed my T in his hand. His next roll was 7. Shoot that money, I yelled while picking the dice up and switching. I picked my side bets up. After 2 more shots, I left the crap game and moved to the front of the pool room. The wine heads started begging for quarters. I gave them $10 to go and get 10 bottles of wine, then sent 3 more wine heads with the first one to make sure he came back. When Ray came out and got in his car, I was standing outside, drinking wine. Between the pool room and restaurant, 20 whores paraded back and forth. I walked over to the car and asked Ray to wait a minute. Looking up and down the sidewalk, I couldn't spot Little Bit anywhere. Did you break luck yet? I asked slowly. How you expect me to do something, huh? I'm too weak from hunger. She cracked loudly, and her girlfriends laughed. I wheeled around and retraced my steps out of the door. On the sidewalk, I found 3 wine heads and paid 2 of them $5 apiece to go in the alley and get me 2 half-full garbage cans. They stared at me as though I were going crazy, but finally realized I was serious. I paid the other man $10, 5 now, and the rest when he returned, to run to the hotel and gather up Little Bit's clothes and bring them back in a paper bag. Ray was sitting on the passenger side with the window down. Hey, baby, he called, beckoning to me. What's the deal here? Sit down, Mella, and run it to me. He moved over under the steering wheel, and I sat down on the passenger side. His woman stopped and peeked through the window. Get on, bitch, you ain't gonna make no money staring at me, he said brutally. I pulled my roll out and split the money I'd made when he shot at the 6. You'd have to take no chance to put that T in my hand, Horson. I was gonna miss anyway, he added. You sure got a beautiful motion, Horson. I know you be knocking, but I'll be damned if I can see you doing it. Our conversation was interrupted by the return of 2 of the wine heads. Each of them was rolling a half-full garbage can. They left the can standing in front of a darkened doorway and came over to the car. From the doorway, infuriated whores screamed curses at the wineheads, but leaving garbage cans in front of their working spots. I leaned my head out of the car window. "I'm gonna give you $10 to do 2 more simple things for me." "What's that?" they asked in a chorus. "First," I said, "I want you to make sure don't nobody move those cans for a few minutes. Can you handle that?" They shook their heads in agreement, so I continued.
You gotta wait till I get
"Second,
some motherfucking money.
I'm gonna put some garbage in those cans, and I want you to make sure it don't get out till you get back in the alley where all the garbage belongs." "Man, I don't know what's going down," the taller of the two stated, "but if that's all you want, we can sure handle it." The guy sent for the clothes walked up with a brown paper bag in his arm. He handed me my key through the car window. I opened the car door and got out. After I took the bag from him, I became aware that we were getting a lot of attention. Ray got out of the car and came around and sat on the fender. I sent the man who had brought the clothes in the restaurant to get a little bit. Walking over to the nearest garbage can, I began dropping the feminine apparel down on top of the garbage. Looking up, I saw Boots staring, apparently shocked. The girls with her watched me with open curiosity. Suddenly the air was ringing with curses. Our world and time dwellers laughed loudly. The prostitutes stared angrily at me for my treatment of their sister. Removing my large bankroll, I beckoned to the wineheads I was paying. "Take this garbage to the alley where it belongs with the rest of the trash," I commanded, peeling off some bills. The anger in the prostitutes' eyes only added fuel to the fury inside of me. My voice was full of contempt as I tongue-lashed them. "I'd rather sleep in shit or suck a dog's dick than let one of you funky bitches think for a minute that you got enough sense to put game on."
Hold on, that nigga said it? I'd rather suck a dog's dick. Come on, Cuddy. I would not rather do that than fuck that. What?
If you feel sorry for that trampish ass bitch, don't. The bitch is where she belongs, with the garbage. Ray slapped me on the back. "Pimp hard," he yelled. "Let these whores know that a hard pimping young man is on the set." The prostitutes began to slip away. Ray, with his arm around my shoulders, led me towards his car. We got in, and he started to cross town to get some cocaine and reefer. The night was young. I had a pocket full of money, and I believed in my heart I could make as much money as any whore that peed between two heels.
Are you serious? What the fuck you mean?
We came back to the track around 4 in the morning. My nose felt like it was frozen from so much coke. We sat in the car, high, smoking reefer with the windows rolled up tight, watching the girls work. Boots walked up and down the street. Even with her belly stuck out a mile, she tried. Every time she stopped a car and waddled
I don't
off
like the way I started it off.
Some other girl would always come off the sidewalk and stand conspicuously behind her. The men constantly passed her along for the other prostitutes. As the time passed, I began to feel sorry for her. Finally, Ray's woman got in the car. Her trap was fat, and she was ready to go in. I said good night and got out. He reassured me that he would pick me up later in the day and take me to a pawn shop so I could buy me a ring. Moving back in the shadows, I stood and watched Boots try and work. A carload of young white boys stopped in front of her doorway. When she didn't come out, they just sat there and heckled her. All the other traffic on the street had to go around the jeering teenagers. Since this ruined her chances of stopping a date, she came out of the doorway and started walking down the street. The car moved slowly along beside her. She turned and came back. The driver put the car in reverse and backed up slow, so that he could keep up with her pace. When the light from the restaurant outlined her pregnancy, they really began to harass her. 2 prostitutes walking past began to take up for her. They berated the kids in the car viciously, their words dripping venom. Where the kids had found Boots vulnerable, they now found themselves defenseless. The prostitutes heaped abuse upon their mothers, fathers, sisters. No one was left out. An empty beer bottle came sailing out of the car in the direction of the girls. They ducked, and the driver roared off with his tires squealing. I stepped out from my dark concealment. "Hi, baby," I said, putting my arm around her waist. "You ready to go in?" She tried a half-hearted smile. "I ain't got my rent money together yet, baby." "Don't worry about it," I replied, and took her arm. Boots shook her head. "I couldn't, Horson. If I took the money from you, I still have to try and make it to give it back." She added, "Besides, I'm too big to be stuffed in a garbage can." Since I still held her arm, I didn't leave her any alternative. "Listen, Nut," I said, "I'm going to spend $20 with somebody tonight. If you don't want to make that money, that's okay with me. But I'm going to find me a working girl somewhere who ain't so choosy." My proposition was the answer to a problem. Shrewd as she was,
I think this is this when he... No. Because she just watched him put a hoe out and all the shit. But there's one. Did it already go past that? Or is Boots the one? I'm speaking on it and thinking out loud because I think might have passed it already, but might not have. But I could have swore he met Boots and he had just got out the pen and he didn't know how he was gonna knock him a new hoe. So he ran game like he was a trick, telling her that he was a trick and so forth, and asked her to let me pay you to teach me how to pimp and so forth. And then, like, I don't want to give it away, but I don't know. I'm wondering if this is supposed to be that, because I just heard it saying she was watching while he was telling that bitch to get on.
she saw through my little plot. Boots was well aware that I wasn't planning on spending $20 on a whore, but handling men was her profession, and she was professional enough to know the error of calling a man a liar to his face. For her to yield to my request now was a simple matter. Her ego wouldn't be hurt, and she would still be independent. Mischievously, she put her head down on my shoulder. "You really make me feel wanted," she said, and laughed lightly, before adding, "Sweetie." My muscles tightened involuntarily. The term sweetie was mostly reserved for tricks, black or white, as long as they spent cash money. Genuine laughter erupted from deep in her throat. She had immediately realized my extreme dislike for this term of endearment when it was used in connection with me.
You're so sweet.
Loneliness was a part of life that I was not used
Just
to.
being me, cuz you
As
ain't
we
gotta
walked
call me
towards the
names.
hotel, I was overjoyed at the prospect of finding temporary release in the warm embrace of Boots' arms. Later, much later, Boots lay in the crook of my arm, with her back pressed against me. The sound of her light snoring was pleasing. My thoughts were troubled as I pondered the future. I kept trying to push the idea from my mind, but it was no use.
Come
I
on,
recognized
bro.
the
I'm
truth
going into
of my
debt.
problem. No matter how much
4,858.
inconvenience it would cause me,
603. My money's
Boots would have
starting to
to be
climb
mine.
yet?
Instead of going to sleep, I rolled her over on her back. Then I kissed her
Yes.
eyes,
It's going down.
nose, neck,
Bar
till she
97. So
moaned and came awake.
in a few moments,
Blinking her eyes, she
income will
stared at
start
me in
kicking in.
surprise. "What,
Got
baby?"
50 views.
She
That's
asked
what's up.
sleepily.
Pinkies up there, everybody.
"Ain't you gonna get no rest?"
Pinkies up
I
to you.
kissed her until I could feel her really responding. "Tomorrow, honey," I whispered. "You gonna move your clothes in here. I'm not giving you time to choose. I've already chose." I had her complete attention now. She twisted around affectionately so that I was gazing down into her beautiful dark eyes. "Horson, don't do nothing for me out of pity, baby. I can make it," I replied crudely. "Don't you understand, bitch, that I really want you? Pity ain't in it. I know you a good whore, big belly or not, so I'm going to hook up with you now." She raised up on her elbows.
Okay, yeah. This is this is her. Yeah, I'll let him read.
Not truly convinced of my sincerity, she apparently was trying to reach an honest decision. Her acceptance of my proposal was a must, especially since I committed myself. If she refused me now, my pride would be hurt. Determined that she wouldn't deny me, I enclosed her in my arms and compelled her to surrender. Her nipples grew firm under my caresses, and I made love to her till her voice trembled with erotic weakness. Sometime in the early morning, I relaxed against the sweat-soaked sheets. Her murmur came to me, low and husky. I can't describe how you make me feel, but I'm yours, Horson.
I be hating that shit, cuz. Make a big ass puddle, cuz. She try to make you lay in it. Like, if we don't change these motherfucking sheets. Oh, goddamn, that's why you gotta put the towel and everything down in the first place, shit. You know you finna have waterworks. So get on your side.
As long as you want me. It was late in the afternoon when Ray showed up. I'd just come back from the bathroom after taking a hot bath. He nodded and smiled warmly at Boots, propped up in the bed with both pillows. "Hey, girl," he yelled. "What you done gone and did? Copped you a Mac? I know you ain't laying up in no pimp's bed yard, girl, so tell me the real deal." While straightening my tie, I watched her in the mirror. I couldn't help but appreciate her. Her low laugh was deep and sexual. When she smiled, her face took on a rare beauty.
The way this nigga makes her lose weight.
She asked lightly, "Are you congratulating me on my choice or warning me, Ray?" I slipped on my overcoat before interrupting. "I'm ready whenever you're ready, Ray." "Wow!" Ray exclaimed. "Man, what's the deal? You done got sharp and even choked up tight on me." I laughed and opened the door, ignoring his remarks about the suit and tie I wore. He was just as immaculate in his attire as I was, except that I wore a tie, and he didn't. 2 hours later, after visiting 5 different pawn shops, I sat down in the car and relaxed. Glittering on my little finger was an exquisite diamond ring. I stared at it proudly. It had cost $700, but I didn't care. My bankroll was down to $9, yet I didn't have a concern in the world. Whether I was stupid or just didn't realize the value of money, I can't say. After all, I was only 16.
Can't take it with you.
Still, I wasn't doing too bad. Jesse had made a better hustler out of me than I realized. There was many grown men who couldn't compare with me when it came to getting down and getting cash money. Here I was, in a strange town, with a pregnant whore to support. By the time it went down, I'd have figured out a way to get fresh money.
Oh, these long ass pauses between chapters. Take this nigga forever to turn the motherfucking page.
12. I stared out at the beaded tattoo against the windshield.
Already halfway through the chapter.
I stared at the mess falling. It wasn't snowing or raining. This slush was a mixture of both. Visibility was slight, so I strained my eyes, trying to pick up Boots, who was standing in front of the restaurant in an attempt to pull a trick. I let out a sigh of relief. Boots came out of the restaurant door with a white John in tow. At least we would be able to pay the rent in the morning. I watched them make their way to the trick's car. I wondered idly how she would handle him. He was just about the biggest, fattest man I'd ever seen. If we had needed the money so bad, I would have told her to pass him up. She was about 7 months gone now. I pictured her and the honky together and grinned. The trick had a pot gut on him as big as the one she was sporting. I left the curb in pursuit of the trick's car. I had no fear of being seen, because the John's back window was completely covered, like mine, with frost. I found a parking spot a few doors down from the hotel, and I left my motor running, absorbing the heat. I watched the couple dash for the entrance of the building. Boots had turned out to be an asset instead of a hindrance during the past 3 weeks we'd been together. Time passed slowly as I sat there with the radio swinging. I glanced at my watch for the 10th time. They'd been gone over 15 minutes. I lit a cigarette to help pass the time. Angrily, I realized that if something didn't jump off soon, I'd have to pawn my jewelry to raise the $500 for the car. After smoking the cigarette down to a butt, I put it out in the ashtray. Cutting the motor off, I jumped out of the car. Tomorrow was my birthday, and I'd be damned if I'd spend it cooped up in a car. I pulled my coat collar up and glanced at my watch. Damn, tomorrow. Today was the beginning of my birthday, and I was poor as hell. The hotel lobby was empty as I crossed it and started up the steps. The night clerk had a small room behind the desk, and you had to ring the bell if you wanted a room after midnight. Obsessed with beating her, that he hadn't heard me enter the room. He was using an ironing cord to whip her. Blood was running from her nose and mouth from the punches that...
Why did it skip all of that? Oh, that's weak as fuck. That's why I just need the book again. I'll just read it myself. That just pissed me off. Like, I don't even want to listen now, cuz you just skipped hella shit. Whatever.
The trick would give her each time she tried to grab hold of the cord. Boots was so engrossed in trying to avoid the cord and punches that she didn't hear me either. She tried to cover her head with a pillow while pulling the sheet up around her body to protect as much of it as possible. Picking up a chair, sitting beside the dresser, I slipped up behind the trick and tried to cave his skull in. The chair splintered on the back of his head. He whirled around and reached for me. His face was covered with blood from the long nails Boots had raked him with. With the remains of the splintered chair, I struck him in the face. The chair didn't stop him. He grunted and wrapped his arms around me. He was as hairy as a gorilla. His chest, legs, arms, and back were covered with a thick, filthy mass of hair. For the first time since I'd entered the room, fear filled my mind. His foul breath was smothering me from our nearness. In desperation, I swung my knee up between his legs as hard as I could. A cry of pain exploded from his lips, and I kneed him again. His big frame began to fold up. Catching him by the hair, I pulled his head down and lifted my knee with all the force I could put into it. I caught him full in the face, crushing his nose and causing his teeth to scatter about the room. He had false teeth, because when he fell to the floor, he spit out the rest of them. He stared up at me, with fear in his eyes. I stared at him in astonishment. He held his penis tight and moaned sickeningly. The doorway was filling up with couples trying to peer in. The clerk stood in the doorway and stared in horror. His eyes kept going from the sickening sight of the perverted trick in the corner to Boots, naked and bloody, stretched out on the bed.
I see.
Not realizing that I still held the ironing cord, I started towards the door to close it. Everybody in the doorway backed up in a hurry. "Listen here, boy," the clerk said hotly. "If you start beating him again, I'm calling the police." I don't give a damn if that freakish honky in there wants you to beat him or not. I ain't having that kind of shit in this hotel. I slammed the door in his face. When I turned around, the trick was putting his clothes back on. My voice was cold and deadly. Leave your money on the dresser. All of it, honky. Just consider yourself lucky that that's all it's gonna cost you, too. I should kill you, Peckerwood. He took all the money out of his wallet and placed it on the dresser. Then, clinging to the wall till he reached the door, he snatched it open and fled down the hallway. My heart began to beat normally again after he left. I realized that he could have beaten me to death if he hadn't been an arch coward. Assuming an air of compassion, I moved over to the bed and began to examine Boots. I found a pan, filled it with warm water, and washed her wounds gently. All the while I'd ignored the money on the dresser, but my mind was in an uproar from wondering how much was there. After I finished washing Boots and got her to go to sleep, I rushed over to the dresser. There was only $18 there. All the bills were $1 ones. I've been hoping for a couple of hundred, at least, but the singles had faked me out. It didn't take acute perception for me to realize that I would have to play some stores in the near future. Like early in the morning, I needed cash money, quick. Under the face bowl, I had hidden the last of a $20 spoon of cocaine. I sat up with a Coke and some weed till daylight invaded the room. The sound of the morning traffic had dwindled slightly when I got up and slipped on my Booster overcoat. It was a coat with shot pockets sewed onto the inside lining. 2 exceptionally large pockets, I might add. After smoking the last joint, I was ready for work. I glanced at the clock on the dresser. Just a little after 7, Boots moaned in her sleep as I gave her a quick check on my way out the door. Out on the street, I pulled my collar up. The hail had stopped, but a freezing wind was blowing. I started the car and climbed back out to clean the windows. The car was warm by the time I got back inside. Traffic moved along at a brisk pace as I drove downtown. I stopped off and had breakfast, killing a little more time. Most of the main stores were still unopened. I parked on a side street and started walking. The first store I entered turned out to be a blank. There was nothing above the counter I could swing with, and not enough money in the till for me to note. Hitting the street again, I fell in step behind 2 well-dressed ladies. They walked fast in an attempt to escape the chilling wind. When they turned down a side street, I stopped and watched them run across the street and enter a modern-looking building. That made my mind up for me. I crossed the street and examined the name of the building. Reuben Donnelly Publishing Company. I started to examine it more closely as 2 secretaries rushed past. I followed them into the building. The corridor was empty. The lobby had been scantily furnished. Just a few chairs. Next to 2 payphones, I found a directory. I scanned it quickly. The building had 6 floors. The printing department was located on the 2nd floor. I quickly decided to bypass that floor. I passed the elevators and found a door marked stairway. I took the stairs 2 at a time until I reached the top floor. I crept down the deserted hallway and discovered I'd reached the floor the cafeteria was on. Peeping through the window, I saw the sister I'd noticed enter the building. She seemed to be fixing up the counter. Except for the 2 women in uniform, the place seemed empty. Retracing my steps, I took the stairs down to the 5th floor. I hesitated before opening the door until the sound of high heels faded away. Straightening my coat, I removed a newspaper from my coat pocket. It was already turned to the want ads. Gripping the paper firmly, the way I imagined a good job hunter would do, I stepped into the hallway. I smiled at the fleeting thought that it would really be amusing if I got hired. I walked down the hallway briskly, but silently. The first office I stopped at, I could see someone silhouetted through the shaded glass, so I crossed the corridor to another office. With my head beside the door, I listened patiently. Not hearing any sounds, I took the plunge. I stepped inside the office. The office was deserted, but the door leading to an adjoining room was open. I could hear a woman's voice coming from the other office. As I listened, I heard a man speak, but I couldn't make out the words. Quickly, I examined the room I was in. There were 2 desks in the office, both on the other side of the room from me. To reach either desk, I'd be in view of whoever was in the other room. The only thing in my favor was the thick carpet on the floor. I held my breath and began creeping. The woman had her back to the open door, while the man was sitting at his desk, with his head down, examining a cluster of papers. I passed the open door without being observed, and reached the first desk. I bypassed it for the second desk, where a chair had been pushed back, as though someone had just risen. As quietly as possible, I opened the second drawer. The bottom one, on the right, had held only paperwork. It was empty, too. I moved over to the other side of the desk and pulled out a drawer. The first thing that met my eye was a large black pocketbook. I removed it and closed the drawer. The damn thing was too large to fit the pockets inside my coat, so I stuck it under my armpit. My heart skipped a beat as I heard the woman start for the door. I froze as the door opened wider. Should I break and run? Maybe I could brazen the bust out. I stepped from behind the desk. The sound of the man's voice halted the woman at the doorway. When she turned to answer, I made my move. Moving quickly, but silently, I recrossed the short distance and reached the door, praying all the while that the woman framed in the doorway concealed me from the man's view. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving the door ajar. Without looking back, I rushed towards the stairway. Before I reached the stairs, the elevator stopped and a woman got out. I gave her my dazzling smile and stepped into the elevator. I pushed the button for the first floor, then tried to arrange the awkward pocketbook under my arm so it wouldn't be conspicuous. At the second floor, the elevator flutter. An elderly woman, I replied, as I pushed the button for the door to close. When I got downstairs and out on the street, I looked back over my shoulder at the building. This was one hell of a way to be spending my 17th birthday, I thought bitterly. I reached my car and rode away from the downtown district. After I found a small, deserted side street, I parked and started searching the pocketbook. The purse had $10 in cash in it. I cursed for about 10 minutes, then investigated the rest of the contents. The bank book I inspected with care. The $1,450 she had deposited in the bank really interested me. I examined all of her identification. Only her driver's license had a revealing W on it. I tossed the license out the window and started the car up. There was no way in the world for Boots to pass for white, but the rest of the ID were all at cash. After all, I reasoned, if she fucked up and got caught, being pregnant would be in her favor when she went before the judge. Boots was lying on the bed, moaning when I entered the room. I put my hand on her head. It was hot. "I'm bleeding, Orson," she whispered. I stared down at her for a moment. "Listen, baby, ain't there something you can do? Like, pack yourself or something? Just slow the bleeding down? I got something I want you to do now." "I might not be able to stop the bleeding, Orson. I done already soaked through 2 pads and a sheet. I think I'm hemorrhaging." My mind was running super fast. I needed her now. "I tell you what, baby, take and pack yourself with cotton. Then get dressed, and I'll take you to a doctor." There was no compassion in my heart, nor was I conscious of any concern about her having a miscarriage. In fact...
And then they learned how to use the motherfucking makeup pads. The little... That look...
I hoped that she would lose the baby. If my mother could see me now, she couldn't help but be proud. At 17, I was developing into a cold, vicious pimp. This is the way I reasoned with myself. But in my heart, I knew that if Jessie could see what I was doing, she would have thrown up in my face. I needed that money, though. And time was something I didn't have. If I didn't get it this morning, it would be too late later on in the day. Boots was too slow getting dressed for me, so I helped her. After getting a maternity dress on her, I grabbed a spring coat and tossed it across her shoulders.
Okay, I don't think it was Boots. Or was it? Because it didn't, yeah, she's pregnant and shit. Yeah, it can't be that one. Did it already go past that? Is that little bit that he knocked like that? Or no, he's only 16, so he ain't went to the pen yet, I don't think.
She was in too much pain to notice that I'd left her heavy winter coat on the rack by mistake. The mistake had been made on purpose. I wanted the bank teller to be sure and see she was pregnant. Finally, we got ready to go. I had to just about carry her down the stairs. I began to have doubts about her holding up long enough for us to make it to a bank. At no time did I even think about taking her to a hospital or doctor. I wanted the money before the bank could be notified. There was another stop I had to make before going to the bank. I parked in a no-standing zone and rushed into a drugstore. I bought a pair of round-rimmed glasses and some pain pills. The eyeglasses she put on. The pills she couldn't swallow without water. And I didn't have the time to stop and get any. Driving towards the outskirts of town, I searched frantically for a branch office bank. I finally found one near the city limits. By this time, Boots seemed nearly delirious. Her legs were stretched out towards me, while her head was against the door. When I shook her, she didn't wake up completely. I got out of the car and picked up a handful of slush. Opening the car door on her side, I held her head and washed her face with dirty snow. She sputtered and spit, but the ice shocked her awake. "Listen, baby," I whispered. "You gonna have to be kind of sharp now. I done told you a dozen times how to do this and how simple it is." I had to help her out of the car. "All you got to do is fill out a withdrawal slip, give it to the teller, and get big bills." "You going with me, Daddy?" she asked, clutching my shoulder for support. "You know I am, baby. You don't think I'd send you by yourself, do you?" I said. I hadn't planned on going in with her, but a blind man could see she would never make it herself. I steered her through the bank entrance. While she filled out the slip, I arranged her coat so that her protruding stomach couldn't help but be seen. It's a belief of mine, I don't know if it's true or not, that people will never suspect pregnant women of a hoax. The mother image is so strong that most people wouldn't imagine a woman in this condition swindling anyone, let alone them. The only doubt I had after entering the bank was when the teller picked up the phone. The only reason I didn't run was that my hands were full trying to keep Boots on her feet. She put most of her weight on me, and I was really holding her up. When I turned back towards the bank teller, she was already talking on the phone. If I ran, I would have to drag Boots, because she was holding on to me for dear life. The teller hung up and smiled. She started counting out the money. To be fair to the lady whose money I was taking, I left $50 in the bank. Back in the car, I just about got Boots settled before she passed out. I pulled out into traffic and drove back towards town as fast as I dared. I was followed by a bald-headed fat man. He was blowing as though he had just run a mile. He tossed his hands in the air. "No, no, no. You must take her to her own gynecologist. Better yet, take her to an obstetrician. But this is the wrong place, young man." I hadn't understood much of what he said, but "A dermatologist," he yelled. "Didn't you read the sign outside?" Boots slipped out of my arms and fell on the floor at my feet. The doctor looked as if he were going to have the baby. The nurse rushed to a telephone, while the doctor and I raved. I pulled my large roll of money out. Behind all I heard and knew of white people, I knew this would get results. "Look, Doc," I started to say. "I'll pay—" The doctor raised his hands toward heaven, spoke for a few moments in another language, then said, "I don't want your money. I'm a dermatologist. Don't you understand? There's nothing—" I interrupted him harshly. "Why, you color-struck bastard, you'd allow this young girl to suffer." At the sound of my words, the doctor turned bright red. The nurse spoke up. "Don't worry, I've called an ambulance.
The internet connection quality is currently not sufficient to broadcast gameplay. Oh my God, why do I pay for this motherfucking internet, bro? For you to keep doing that shit. Like, is there an upgrade of internet I need to buy where my motherfucking shit is like super powerful or some shit? I don't fucking get it. Do I need to have 3 rotors in this motherfucker or something so that my motherfucking internet stays on continuous strength? And it's fucked up because I went to school and got my certificate and everything for computer tech and didn't use that shit. So yeah, no, I don't know that shit no more.
The doctor and I exchanged a few more choice words before the ambulance crew arrived. When they did
Then it says that and it doesn't cut off. That's weird as fuck.
Arrived, we were standing over Boots, glaring at each other, while the nurse knelt beside her, giving her a shot. As I followed the stretcher from the office, I turned in the doorway. "You're about as useful as a doctor," I said loudly, "as a penis is on a sissy." As I started my car up to follow the ambulance, I glanced at the sign. Dermatologist. I couldn't pronounce the damn word, let alone spell it, and I sure didn't have the slightest idea what it meant. Later at the hospital, an intern, thinking that I was the grief-stricken husband, stopped and explained, "Your wife has had a miscarriage. The membrane was punctured, causing the fetus to die, and when that happened, the uterus started to expel it." "You mean she gonna lose the baby?" I asked, ingenuously. The young intern stared at me for a moment to see if I was serious. Then, realizing that I was just young and dumb, he said, "She has lost the baby. Now we're trying to stop the hemorrhaging so that we don't lose the mother too." That rang a bell. The last thing I wanted to do was lose a good hoe. After waiting all this time for her to get streamlined, I didn't want to lose her now that she was ready for the track. When he saw the shock in my face, the intern walked away. I felt the bankroll in my pocket. It was $400 short because of the hospital bill. I shouldn't have paid the damn bill so fast. If she died and I hadn't paid the bill, all I'd had to do was deny being her husband, and the hell with the bill. The thought of her dying rang in my mind, followed by the frightening knowledge of what a funeral would cost. I sat down suddenly and began to pray. "Please, Lord, don't let that young girl die." For the next 2 hours, I sat there with my head in my hands. Whenever a nurse came by, she would try and console me. They must have imagined me as a grieving husband, for they were all very kind. They didn't realize that I was just as concerned about my $400 as I was about Boots. I don't want this misunderstood, so I'll try and explain it better. If Boots lived, the hell with the 400. But if she died, it was then a two-way blow. A good whore is always worth more than $400 to a good pimp. One of the nurses stopped and persuaded me to go home and get some rest. It didn't take much urging. I've been trying to figure out a good excuse for departing. That way, if something happened, I'd make damn sure they couldn't find me to stick with the burial expense.
I just have to say, becoming a father of females, 4 girls, fucks you up, bro. I don't know. There's a lot of niggas out there in this world that's cold still and so forth. That doesn't mean shit to them. But me per se, when I became the father of my first daughter, if it watered me down. Number 2, watered me. 3 and 4, oh God, how could you think that way of girls? How did you say that to It's fucked me up, bro. Cause now I just I just think of my daughters. I can't help it. It just makes me think of my daughter, and I just, it hurts my heart that I used to believe and support and think this way and shit. Why would you do that? But yeah.
The next few days were days of worry. I called the hospital constantly. Most of the nurses knew my voice by now, and they kept me up on the latest. She was out of the worst of it, so I could start relaxing. This was really beautiful news. I knew that in the near future, I would be pimping again, and doing it sure enough big.
Oh, it's long ass turning the page.
Harness loose. Now that I had a cat, I knew that he was one. The expression on his face to your pad with me. Cut him loose. I laughed. If some of the mellow fellas have a hand, the fly
that's why I don't
caught me
fast forward.
Turned down his bag. Don't take no time. A little bit. I don't care nothing. He added. While he hesitated. How far we got to go? I yelled. She tried to climb on top of my...
God damn it.
Blubberish. He didn't have... smart. He'd been big before, but now he was huge. I'd seen him last. Herb. Door.
Fuck.
And that. Someone knocked on the window. By the time... it's been raised. It was a sure bet that I wouldn't try kicking a door down, and there was nothing I'd... And Big Mom... It would benefit me to pay heed to it. If I put boots on the streets, working, and Big Mom fit me to pay heed until she was in good shape. Amusing as Big Mama's threat was.
That shit's fucked up, bro. You just need to skip hella shit just trying to skip the fucking pause.
Plus, Big Mama asked the boots stood up. We go.
Come on, dog.
Happened to me. Quite a bit of time had elapsed. Who's the baby? If my mother could see me now, she couldn't help but be proud. At 17.
Oh my God, dog. Fuck. What do I need? What should I do? This shit I put.
I stared out at the beat a tattoo against the windshield. I stared at the mess falling. It wasn't snowing or raining. This slush was a mixture of both. Visibility was slight, so I strained my eyes, trying to pick up Boots, who was standing in front of the restaurant in an attempt to pull a trick. I let out a sigh of relief. Boots came out of the restaurant door with a white John in tow. At least we would be able to pay the rent in the morning. I watched them make their way to the Trick's car. I wondered idly how she would handle him. He was just about the biggest lady whose money I was taking. I left $50.
This should make me want to just stop the fucking book now.
I was still in a jocular mood. Driving down Hastings Street was a thrill for me. The appalling deterioration of the tenements, gloomy and frightening to some people, filled me with joy. This was home to me. I didn't know any other way of life.
You come from the slums, man. That's why it's funny to me when people be like, how are you doing with all of this going on? How are you? I'll survive to live through worse than this. This ain't nothing new. It's just, what is the results going to be? Are you going to survive it? It's definitely not the slums.
The women huddled in the doorways, trying to find some measure of warmth and shelter, or plying their trade, didn't arouse commiseration in my heart. Only regret that they weren't in my stable. Boots' impression was altogether different from mine. I sure feel sorry for them bitches. I bet they done damn near froze in them doorways. Then she added, if it was me, I'd walk up and down instead of standing still. That way at least you might stay a little bit warm. Some of the more notable pimps could be seen sitting in their cars with the motors running. Sometimes a girl would run out of a doorway and get in a car. After sitting in the car for a few moments to get warm, she would run back to her doorway and continue working. I parked in front of Big Mama's. Most of the women standing in her doorway knew me. They began to yell before I got out of the car. Look at Horson, honey, driving a Cadillac and diamond down, Marge yelled, a healthy, coffee-colored woman. Boots got out of the car and waited for me at the curb. She put her arm around me and tossed her head up. Her attitude revealed beyond a doubt that I was her man and that she was plenty proud of it. We walked up the stairs, arrogant and self-sufficient, without a care in the world. Big Mama, her face all aglow, smothered me in her huge arms. Horson, boy, why didn't you write us something? Here I've been worried to death over you, and you don't even bother to write. I finally extricated myself from her embrace. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed this big woman who cared so much about me. There was a lump in my throat, and I hoped that my eyes wouldn't betray me by glittering with tears. Come here, baby, I said to Boots, and meet my grandma. Boots was a big woman herself, but when Big Mama embraced her, she was completely lost in those enormous arms and bosom. Big Mama removed a bottle of wine from her refrigerator, and we sat around in the kitchen, drinking and reminiscing. Horson, Big Mama said, I still got your flat, boy. If you want to move back in, it's okay with me. I've been paying the rent and sleeping there sometimes. It does my poor heart good to get away from all these silly girls at times. I'm sick of hearing them talk about their damn pimps. My acceptance of the fact seemed to bring joy to the old woman's soul. I guess she just felt as if I were her wayward child. On my part, I not only felt, but knew that, except for Boots.
When you got a home to go back to, where you got, when shit ain't working, and you can go somewhere to get back on your feet and get your mind right, and just, that's healthy. You don't have that, it's fucked up. Yeah, that just hit me, cuz, god damn it. I just need to get the fuck away from here for a little bit. I wish I had a big mama to go to or somebody. Shut up.
She was the only person in the world who really cared about what happened to me. Quite a bit of time had elapsed since we entered the apartment. I stood up. Well, Big Mama, I said, I guess we had better be going. We've been traveling all morning and need some rest. Boots stood up and clutched my arm for support. The drinks and weed had finally caught up with her. That child sure can't drink much, can she? Big Mama asked. We've been drinking all morning, I replied. Plus, she just got out of the hospital today. If that's the truth, Horson, Big Mama, go to work too soon. You wait till she's ready, you hear? She followed us to the door. I mean that, Horson. If you need any money, boy, let me know. But you better make damn sure I don't hear about that girl out there working sick. A friendly warning followed us down the stairs. It was obvious that I wouldn't work Boots until she was in good shape. Amusing as Big Mama's threat was, it would benefit me to pay heed to it. If I put Boots on the streets, working, and Big Mama got the wire, she wouldn't hesitate to lock Boots up in her flat. And there was nothing I'd be able to do about it. It was a sure bet that I wouldn't try kicking a door down. Anytime a man has been raised by a woman, his mother or not, there's certain liberties she can take with it that no other person in the world would dare do.
God damn it.
By the time I got Boots in the car and was starting the motor up, someone knocked on the window. I glanced over my shoulder and saw Ape grinning at me. Reaching over Boots' sprawled-out form, I opened the car door and let him in. He waved back at the men he had been with as I pulled away from the curb. Ape had filled out quite a bit since I'd seen him last. He had been big before, but now he was huge. When he smiled, he still resembled a titanic gorilla. He didn't have but 2 teeth in the front of his mouth, and his lips were large and blubberish. When Boots got sober enough to look up at him, she tried to climb on top of my lap. "Watch out, woman!" I yelled. "What you gonna do, sit on the steering wheel?" I thought we got to go to find some good reefer, Ape. He hesitated for a moment. "Billy got some light green, Horson, while Eddie's smoke is good. It's got a lot of sticks and stuff, family." He added, "Eddie's dealing out of the pool room." "I don't care nothing about the sticks, Ape, if the smoke is boss. The smoke is mellow, baby," he answered. "The sweet thing about it is that it don't take no time to cop. When Eddie ain't at the pool room, he leaves his bag with the rack man." The pool room was on John R., so I turned down a side street. "Give him $15, Boots, out of my inside pocket. Cop me a half a can of weed, and pick up a couple of bottles of wine. We'll be around at the flat where I used to stay. Is that cool with you?" He took the $15 out of her hand. "That's swangin', brother.
Dollar, boy.
What should I do if some of the mellow fellas want to come around to your
I ain't
pad?
never had just
Cut
a
'em
dollar
loose?"
left.
I laughed.
It always went negative.
The expression on his face revealed all he didn't say. I knew that he was wondering if I would cut all of my old partners loose now that I had a caddy and a whore. "Bring whoever you want, man. This is Horson, not John Flippengates." He stuck his hand back in the car. I leaned over and smacked his hand hard with mine. He yelled, "Mellow, mellow, mellow, I can dig it. I can really dig where you coming from, baby boy." He turned and catted towards the pool room. Boots looked at me, amused. "Baby, I can really tell that you're at home."
It's a long ass pause, but I'm not gonna try to. Is that a slug bug? Slug bug. Oh, I can't even see because I'm on Harvey Coal Power Plant driving to work.
14. Empty wine bottles and overflowing ashtrays littered my apartment. For the past 2 weeks, our flat had become an open house, with wild parties continuing for 3 or 4 days without stopping. Since Friday, I promised myself that come Monday morning, the party would end. At long last, I'd got the last drunk started down the stairs. It had taken over an hour to get rid of all of them. But now, I could sigh with relief. Now, with the dawn breaking through the early darkness, I watched from my window the working men of the neighborhood preparing to depart for work. Milton's father, dirty as usual, stood in the street beside his car, talking to one of his neighbors. I watched him with disdain.
Good morning, Miss Poole. How you doing, lady? Or good afternoon, shall I say. I apologize if I'm late seeing your comment now.
His coverall.
How you doing today, woman?
Were grimy with filth. The old model car he drove matched its owner in shabbiness. My gaze flickered to my Cadillac. There was a feeling of triumph inside of me. I wasn't even half his age, and I already accomplished more than he ever would. Milton's mother could look down her fat nose at me if she wanted to pretend.
I hella apologize if I missed you, if you stepped out again already. But if you there, hi, lady.
But we both knew who had the sweetest end of the stick. Exultation overcame me as I turned and watched Diane dumping ashtrays. With my chest pushed out with pride, I walked over to the bedroom and opened the door. Boots and Vera were both laid out, side by side. They had danced so much over the past few days that they were just worn out. "Diane, why aren't you in bed getting some rest, girl?" I asked quietly. "You know I'm sending you to work later on today." She looked up from her cleaning and smiled shyly. "I just want to clean this mess up a little, Daddy," she answered innocently. A good pimp should try and know what his whores are thinking. Sometimes you would be put in an awkward spot, but most of the times you can guess just about what they have on their mind. "Quit lying, bitch," I replied coldly. "I know the only reason your lazy ass is up, faking like you're working, is on the slim chance that I gave you some meat this morning when I go to bed." Her eyes dropped, and she tried to look rejected, but just as quickly she rushed over and hugged me. "You gonna do a little something for me this morning? Ain't you, Orson?" The room. Her body had the smell of fresh roses, and her arms around me had the same effect as alcohol to the senses. When our bodies met, a shock of electricity went through my mind. We were caught up in the passion of youth, and my excitement exceeded all bounds. Later, with Diane snuggled against me gently snoring, I shuddered with horror at the thought of having to leave every morning for a job. I'd never had a job, and because of my environment and training, plus my dexterity at getting money, employment was unnecessary. My stable was growing. My mind wandered to the other two girls in the house, Boots and Vera. Not that I had three girls. It wouldn't be long before I was the best young pimp in the city. Here I was, at 17, with three of the youngest, wildest, and fastest whores in the country. How sweet it was. Pimping really had its good points. With the passing of Christmas and the following holidays, I was in good shape for the new year. Boots was able to go back to work, so I stopped her from doing any more boosting. Her boosting bloomers were packed away for later use. Many pimps would disagree with me, because quite a few pimps would rather have a booster than a whore. But to me, at this stage of my life, I didn't want anything but a flat-backing whore. The neighborhood theater, which went by the name of Duke, used to put on talent shows every Saturday afternoon. Since I was too young for the bars, I dressed my three ladies up.
What a lot of motherfuckers don't know, man, is a lot of you ladies be turning niggas out as far as turning niggas into pimps. Like, a lot of ladies be turning niggas out. I was turned out. Violated.
Up, get the car washed, and make my grand appearance, amidst much head-turning and elation from the young would-be pimps in the audience. Abe, with a few more of my old gang, would have 2 rows of seats saved down front for the selected ones in our crowd. My girls enjoyed the adulation as we walked slowly towards our seats. Our popularity was rising. The fastest young girls in the neighborhood would crowd down near our row, trying to catch my eye. This theater was to become the best establishment in the city for meeting potential prostitutes. One Saturday, while sitting down front, crowded in between many admirers, a group came out on the stage and swept the spotlight from me with their swinging arrangements. I stared in wonder at young Janet. She was still singing and getting better than ever. I watched her capture the crowd with song after song. The audience wouldn't let them leave the stage. Every time they tried to leave, the crowd would become so unruly that the owner would call them back on stage. After doing one more number, Janet must have decided to put a stop to the commotion herself. She came down off the stage, followed closely by the two girls who sang with her. She stopped in front of me and leaned over. "Horson, how about trying and getting us out of here?" She yelled in my ear. "Don't worry, baby," I said, standing up. "I can handle it."
Oh, they be getting over.
I replied with more confidence than I felt.
Hold on. This nigga robbing this place because the police can't get there. You can't get there because the police station right here. They gotta come. That's a one-way, so the police can't come near. That nigga left. They would have to go all the way out the city. Fuck. That ain't gonna work either. That shit. Or is it still gonna say because they gotta turn that way, that shit is safe, right? It can't. How about that? Now don't build something else right there, nigga. Fuck, my bad. I do need that road there. What? I already put a fireplace, nigga, a fire station. I need a high school. Yeah, I already got a fire station. I need a high school, my niggas. Oh, there we go. Shit.
The crowd was really yelling and kids were crowding into the aisle. I had grave doubts about whether I could get them out. One thing kept ringing in my mind, though. This young girl had "Star" written all over her, and I meant to shine bright in her eyes. Embracing Janet, I pulled one of her trembling girlfriends into my other arm. Catching Boots' eye, I yelled, "See if you can get Ape and some of the fellas to clear a path, baby." She nodded and ran over to him. With Ape and 5 more of the bunch in front of her, Boots started breaking through the crowd, with us right behind. With kicks and punches, they soon had kids climbing seats to get out of the way. Finally, we reached the protection of my car. All the girls piled in. I gave Ape enough cap, reached the They soon had kids crowd over to him. With Ape and 5 to clear a path, baby. Catching Boots. Written all. One thing kept were crowding into the aisle. I replied with, "Baby," I said, standing up. "I can handle it. Worry, babe. Horson, how about trying and getting us out of here?" Stopped in front of me. Stage, followed. Cluster decided to put a stop to the commotion herself. She came down off the stage, followed closely by the 2 girls who sang with her. She came down after doing one more number. The audience wouldn't let them leave. Watched her.
I don't know how I missed all this.
She was still singing and getting better than ever. I watched her capture the crowd with song after song. The audience wouldn't let them leave the stage. Every time they tried to leave, the crowd would become so unruly that the owner would call them back on stage. After doing one more number, Janet must have decided to put a stop to the commotion herself. She came down off the stage, followed closely by the 2 girls who sang with her. She stopped in front of me and leaned over. "Horson, how about trying and getting us out of here?" she yelled in my ear. "Don't worry, baby," I said, standing up. "I can handle it," I replied with more confidence than I felt. The crowd was really yelling and kids were crowding into the aisle. I had grave doubts about whether I could get them out. One thing kept ringing in my mind, though. This young girl had "Star." Catching Boots' eye, I yelled, "See if you can get Ape and some of the fellas to clear a path, baby." She nodded and ran over to him. With Ape and 5 more of the bunch in front of her, Boots started breaking through the crowd, with us right behind. With kicks and punches, they soon had kids climbing seats to get out of the way. Finally, we reached the protection of my car. All the girls piled in. I gave Ape enough cash for cab fare and some weed before driving off. "You can drop us off anywhere, Horson," Janet said quietly. I smiled and kept on driving. "I know you ain't gonna be rude enough to refuse an invitation to my place, Janet." She sighed and settled back against the seat, compelled to accept my offer by my apparent refusal to stop long enough to let them out. Within 30 minutes after our arrival, the capacity of my house was being tested. Teenagers were everywhere except the back porch, and that was only because of the cold weather. Janet sat down on the couch beside me. She was breathing heavily from continuous dancing. "This is the first time I've sat down since we got here," she laughed. "I've heard about some of the swinging sets you gave, Horson, but I didn't realize just how renowned you are. I'm glad you're really enjoying yourself, Janet. You seem so set against coming here that I figured you'd leave before everybody arrived." "Actually, I'm having a better time than I thought was possible, Horson." She touched my arm and gestured towards the dancers. "Seriously, though, Horson, just how long do you think this can go on?" What do you mean, baby? The party? I asked, looking down into her large, serene eyes. Yielding to her female wiles, she laughed lightly and gave my arm a pinch. You know what I mean. These parties.
And that'd be the fucked up thing about nowadays. Like, they wanna be the one to save you from that life. If you already gave up that life and all that shit, then you're not a challenge now. That's just weird.
Substitutes you not working? How long, Horson, do you really think you can last? Noticeable as your Cadillac is, successful as pimping might be, you still don't have any solid foundation under you. It finally occurred to me that she was serious. Probably this was her way of letting me know that she would be available if I would give up the game. Naturally, I had no intention of ever giving up the game, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Listen, sugar, I said softly, name me one good job that I could get. Don't think about the caddy that I drive, or the diamonds that I wear, nor the silk suits that I look so good in. Just forget about those things and name me a decent job that I could get. She bit down on her lip for a moment. Well, she began, you probably have to go back to school for a while. She hesitated to see if I was taking this seriously before continuing. Then after you graduated, you could... She finished in a rush. Get all kinds of jobs. Be a little more precise, baby, I inquired of her, jokingly. She frowned and became very nervous. Well, let me see, she said quietly. You could, become a policeman.
Can't do nothing, because once you start doing something, then they looking at you like, oh, you working? You got a job? Oh, you work at a grocery store? And why you ain't selling dope? Why you ain't out here trying to pimp? Because, bitch, you gonna cut turf as soon as a nigga... Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
I laughed harshly. At what police department, honey? One in China? No, Horson. It's the truth. I ain't joking. My mother read it in the papers this morning. She said they're hiring colored men for all kinds of jobs on the force now. Instead of being amused by her behavior, I was ashamed of myself. I realized that she was so innocent, she believed I might give up my precious possessions for love. Horson, she said, her face shining with sincerity, there are many girls who would marry you and not care if you didn't make a whole lot of money at work. They wouldn't care if you had to sweep floors, wash cars, anything.
That's not the truth.
Just as long as you were theirs, it wouldn't make any difference what you did. She was looking at me with so much tender love in her eyes that I tried to joke her out of the mood. You can easily say that, Janet, I said. I ain't seen none of these girls you keep talking about. Her eyes had tears in them as she stared up at me. Just look at me, Horson, she said. I'd gladly be your wife. But never your whore. After quite a circular route, there it was,
that nigga's active
out in the open. I had tried to keep the naked truth of her feelings from coming to light, but now the cards had been spread on the table, face up. She seemed so lovely, sitting beside me, that the thought of losing her was like taking a liquid bath with loneliness. I knew that my answer would hurt her. Even while I wanted to spare her pain, my customary glibness vanished. To me, the sound of my voice was harsh and sharp. Janet, I wouldn't be a flunky to the white man for you or the Virgin Mary. Car washing, truck driving, or working at some honky's factory is out of the question for me. Wait, I said, and grabbed her arm to prevent her from leaving. If my mother had left me enough money to set up a business or something, things would have been different. But since this didn't happen, the only way I can get big money without selling drugs is to manage sporting ladies. She listened to my raving until I was finished, then removed my hand from her arm. Goodbye, Horson, she said bitterly. Again, I wish you all the happiness in the world. Instead of following her, I watched her walk quickly to the door and leave. Cried, and I knew she was crying.
What are you doing?
Trying to maintain my air of composure, I turned and examined the crowded room. Boots dropped down in the vacant seat. She patted me on the cheek. "Don't worry, Daddy. You miss one shot, you get another," she added. "While you was talking to Janet, that light-skinned girl over there, asked me if I'd mind having her for a wife-in-law. Coppin' was just that simple. My fourth girl came to me just like that." I stared at her without too much interest. Boots' sharp remark brought me back out of the clouds. "What you looking so mournful about, Horson? I know it ain't over that skinny-ass Janet. But all she could do is sing to the tricks, 'cause she ain't got enough ass to stand no heavy pounding." I whirled around to give her a chilling rebuke.
What?
But her eyes were... I whirled around tricks, 'cause she ain't got enough ass to stand no heavy pounding.
God damn it.
I whirled around to give her a chilling rebuke. But her eyes were deadly cold, unflinching. Her voice dripped with venom when she spoke.
That's that. Who is that?
Whores go with pimps, Horson. Barbers go with manicurists. And square bitches go with square niggas. She pivoted on her heels and walked across the crowded floor. Her back was straight, her head held high. With the coming of summer, my stable of whores stayed anywhere between 6 and a dozen good prostitutes. Pimpin' was good, but my bankroll continued to swell. At times I would hear reports about I awoke Monday afternoon with a splitting headache. My mouth was dry and my eyes were bloodshot from too much entertaining without sleep. I reached over one of the ladies in my bed and removed the last stick of weed from the night table. Before I could finish smoking the joint, Boots opened the bedroom door and walked in. Her sharp glance briefly lingered on the two sleeping forms I was lying between. "Horson," she said, "why don't you get them lazy bitches up and on the track? Shit, they ain't done nothing but pop their fingers and shake their ass since Friday night." Before replying, I sat up in the bed and inhaled deeply on the tiny cocktail between my fingers. "Bitch," I replied coldly, "until you grow a pole, you leave the pimping to me." Boots put her hands on her hips and leaned provocatively towards the bed. "Yes, sir, master, sir," she said sardonically. Amused at her answer, I climbed out of the bed and stretched. Since the miscarriage, Boots had developed into one fine bitch. You couldn't have paid one of my other whores to speak to me in such a flip manner, but Boots knew that she was my main lady, so at times she acted just like a black queen. And to me, that's just what she was. "Since I'm up now, I guess I'll take a hot bath," I said. Boots hurried over to the dresser and took out a large towel. "Horson, I went over to the hotel like you said, Daddy, but I couldn't get the top floor like you wanted. It was already rented out, so I rented a suite on the second floor. How much did that one rent for?" I asked sharply. She hesitated for a moment. $30 a day, Daddy, but I didn't pay but a week's rent on it." She rushed her words out, afraid of my reaction. More from habit than anger, I yelled, "Bitch, dumb bitch, ignorant bitch, did it ever occur to you that I might not want the suite on the second?"
This is back in 1940, though. $30 was like $400-500 back then, nigga. This is when you get cigarettes for a penny, and if they even had cigarettes, nigga. So $30, that nigga was like, that's a lot of money. Why you choose that?
"Can flow?" I walked out, leaving her to stare after me dumbfounded. Pushing the bathroom door open, I stopped at the sight of another one of my whores. Damn! I exclaimed irritably. When you get finished, Gene, run me some bath water. Before slamming the door, I added, get some spray, or either burn some goddamn incense in there, and please mix some water with it.
That silly ass face, quit smiling. What are you smiling for? Put your motherfucking tongue in your mouth.
The girls in the kitchen burst out laughing. I stared at the women preparing breakfast until silence greeted my smothering glance. Boots came quietly into the room and put on a stack of records.
What do I need?
Any of you bitches got some reefer here? Set it out for Daddy, she ordered. Diane, small, thin, with features that seemed to have been carved from a bronze statue, danced out of the kitchen. She held up 2 joints proudly. Here, Daddy. Her voice belied her small frame with its deep sensuality. Her large hazel eyes twinkled as she held out the weed. Without commenting, I removed the reefer from her outstretched hand and watched her dance back into the kitchen. If all my girls had the vim that Diane displayed at all times, my pimping would be a relief. Next to Boots, she was the best moneymaker in my stable. Jean came out of the bathroom. She was almost as tall as Boots, but that was where the comparison ended. Where Boots was dark, Jean was light, with yellow teeth full of gaps. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have accepted her in my stable, because she was lazy and virulent. At the time she chose me, I was just beginning my stable. She came to me after ripping off 300 from a trick. I finished off the joint I'd started before traipsing off to my waiting bath. The mellow weed, plus the hot bath, eliminated my slight irritation. Living in a house full of women had its drawbacks, but I found it much more rewarding than living in a house without any women. Slipping deeper into...
Fuck you.
At the tub, I splashed water up on my chest and shoulders. With the rental of the suite, I would eliminate the problem of some of the worrisome women in my stable. When I moved out, I reasoned, I wouldn't take but Boots and Diane with me. My meditation came to an abrupt end with the entry of Diane.
Have a good day.
She closed the bathroom door behind her, and by the time I turned to see who it was, she had slipped out of her duster and leaped into the tub, naked.
Crazy.
Now, I have heard many people speak of how wonderful it is to make love in the bathtub, but to me, ain't nothing happening with it. First of all, I don't enjoy it.
That shit is stressful as the fuck. I mean, God, you can get a little session started in the shower. In the shower, you can handle some shit. But nigga, a whole session in the tub. We is trying to fit in this mother. Like, yeah, get your ass. No. No. And we start here and take it there. Because we're going in the bathroom to have the whole session in the bathtub, taking a bath. We can get in the mood.
A woman bathing with me. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to having sex with a person in a tub, I think it's foolish. As small as Diane was, she still hurt my legs when she sat on my lap. I pushed her up, so she turned around and sat down in the bathtub facing me. She was so full of mischief that she made me grin in spite of my attempt to look stern. I put my knee between her legs and began to probe for the right spot.
Keep it solid. Like, unless you got one of them, mansion-ass bathtubs, even then, I think that shit is still just too much stress going on. But if you in a regular in a bathtub, like even just you sitting down in the front and she right here, and she sitting in the back and you sitting and she washing your like she got her legs all trying to. Yeah, that shit is stressful. Quit playing. We are not enjoying this. Feels good, Loved it, but it's not enjoyable. Like, man, move your. You know what? Is it time to take the shower yet? You still wanna? Come on, God. I'm a big nigga, so yeah, quit playing. You want me to do all that pick you up and shit? Cause we about to oh, bap your motherfucking nose, bro. Fuck that. I've had
Lithe and graceful body began to move in a most assertive manner. She looked up at me and groaned enthusiastically.
Balance
oh, Daddy.
On point.
Daddy, you sure know how to make it good to me. Before the sound of her vibrant voice descended to its normal tones, Boots had shoved open the door and stepped in. She stood in the doorway, glaring.
And that's where I'm fucked up, because I'm at that point in life now where I speak the truth. And babe, come on, you should take a bath with me. And girl, we finna be in that motherfucker stressed out. You go ahead, take your bath. I'll wash your back and shit, and then let's take a shower. All that in the tub. It's a regular tub. It's not a mansion tub.
With the reefer I'd given her hanging from the side of her mouth.
And I can sit all the
Diane broke the silence.
We can swim to each other.
Oh, you don't own this dick, bitch, she yelled. So try putting an egg in your shoe and beat it. On this mouth. Doorway, glaring, with the reefer I'd given her hanging from the side of her mouth. Diane broke the silence. Oh, you don't own this dick, bitch, she yelled. So try putting an egg in your shoe and beat it. Boots ignored her and came over and sat on the side of the bathtub. Little hot cunt heifer, she said. Why don't you get your ass out of there so that Horson can enjoy his bath? The weed had put me in such a mellow mood that I just sat back and enjoyed the byplay. Diane snorted. Huh, whore? I like your nerve. There you sit on your wide ass smoking my reefer and talking shit. Before Boots could retort, Diane followed up her verbal attack with action. Using the palms of her hands, she began scooting water in Boots' direction. Boots took to her heels while I tried to save my towel from getting soaked. Cursing, I climbed out of the tub. It would be my luck to get hooked up with a bunch of crazy bitches. Diane jumped out of the tub and snatched the towel from me. Resigned to my fate, I stood docile while she rubbed me down. True to her impetuous nature, as soon as she got below my waist, she began to act up. Using the towel with an imp's delight, she took to her task vigorously. I laughed at her unruly behavior, but before I became too aroused, I decided to put a stop to it. I slapped her wrists, but it didn't do any good. She just got a tighter grip. Trying to pry her hands loose was more difficult than trying to get free from an octopus. Bitch!
Bruh, have you ever had that motherfucker, bruh, she knocking you down, bro. And bro, you there, bruh, and she won't stop. She, like, bruh, you trying to, hey, okay. Oh my God. And she just keep and want to do the tickle. Oh my motherfucking Lord, God. God got you running away from her now. Like, my God. Ready to do other things. God. And she just. That should be halfway rule, ladies.
I yelled. Enough is enough. Turn my Jones loose. Instead of obeying, she dropped to her knees and opened her mouth as though she were going to eat some rare delicacy. I grabbed a handful of her hair and pulled her head back. Only the sudden opening of the door stopped me from slapping her. Boots charged in carrying a bucket of water. Diane uttered a scream and scrambled behind me. I leaped sideways, but I was too slow. Most of the cold water landed on me. I shook like a dog, shaking water from his fur. Boots turned and fled, and I leaped towards the doorway in hot pursuit, cursing every step of the way. Shrill, piercing shrieks greeted me as I ran bare ass into the living room. All of my women were sitting there, eating, and 3 other prostitutes that didn't belong to me had stopped in to roll up some reefer. My predicament was embarrassing even for me. There I stood, in the middle of the floor, naked as a newborn baby, with no less than 10 women evaluating my prodigious instrument. I looked down unconsciously. Because of the vicious tugging by Diane a few moments ago, I had nothing to be ashamed of. Gathering up as much dignity as the occasion would allow, I ambled towards the bedroom, amidst catcalls, much laughter, and sly insinuations. One girl exclaimed. I see why Horson got all your hoes in his stable now. Another one cracked. I don't know what you got between your legs, but if I dreamed I took that much meat, I'd wake up with female trouble.
These bitches, boy.
Amidst much loud laughter.
And that's how y'all really be talking to each other, though.
Listening from behind the door to their frank appraisal of my merits. Once again, I became aware of the fact that whenever a group of women got together, they discussed private sex matters much more openly than a group of men would. To a stranger, their conversation would have sounded vulgar, because they discussed oral sex as though it were a hat they had just purchased. But to me, their conversation was as normal as eating and sleeping. They were discussing their work and the easy way of doing it. I hadn't turned 18 yet, and prostitutes were the only kind of women I had ever known. If someone had inferred that the life I led was quite different from the rest of society, I wouldn't have given it a second thought. From the factory workers I knew, and the ones I saw coming home from work, I didn't have a doubt in my mind as to my role in life. As far as I was concerned, there were 2 categories of people. One group consisted of tricks, and the other of players. And I knew I'd been born to play. I finished dressing and glanced in the mirror. My apparel consisted of black pants, a gold high-low shirt, and black alpaca sweater. The black alligator shoes set off my casual dress to perfection. I put on my diamond ring and took one last peek in the mirror, fixing my features in a cold, unruffled mask. I opened the bedroom door and stepped out onto my stage. All pimps must be actors to some degree. Not to act spells failure in their field. When a woman comes to your bed in the early morning hours with a fistful of money for you, you are forced to act. No matter how much you may detest this certain lady, you cannot allow your true feelings to show. Being aware of the possibility that she may have consumed a bucket of sperm in the course of a night, you don't display any aversion if she wants to kiss you. You descended to the bathroom with the Listerine and toothpaste. So instead of her ever becoming aware of your true nature, she only sees the part you act. Instead of scorn, she finds acceptance. Instead of hate, she finds her conception of love. Thus, many people believe that prostitutes are the biggest tricks of all. Closing the bedroom door behind me, I yelled, "Diane!" My voice was cold and harsh. "You and some of them other bitches clean up that water on the floor."
Some niggas don't know, but trick niggas, square niggas don't know that prostitutes pay for dick. Whether even because sometimes they'll have a pimp that does not give it to them. Like, bitch would get it from her pimp maybe once a month, because that's so. And due to the fact she gets no enjoyment when she's with a trick, she will call upon a male escort for her session. Like, that's just a piece of that trick. But they trick. They're the biggest tricks. Tricking and giving out their money to the pimp. Period. Hoping to get some of that dick.
Then you get boots, clothes, and your own packed. I'll be back for you in a little while.
That's crazy.
Fear leaped into her eyes. She searched my face for a clue, then turned and stared at Boots. Their eyes met, and whatever transpired seemed to relieve her. She was laughing as much as ever when Boots and I went out the door. The following weekend, Boots and I drove up to visit Tony. He'd grown quite tall, with a swell of muscle in his forearms and chest. Wiry, but with more than an intimation of great physical strength in a young, cleanly built body. His face, with its deep-set black eyes and aquiline nose, showed the fierceness of his African heritage, tempered by the compelling beauty of a black starless night. His broad features burst into a genuine grin of happiness. "Damn, horse, I done damn near gave up on seeing you until..." His voice boomed out across the visiting area.
What the fuck? That was a skip. That was a skip right there. Man, fuck, I just want the book. Somebody get me the book, Horse by Donald Goins. I'll read it to y'all. While you playing, I ain't gonna lie, for the longest I've been wanting to find out how do you audition or get, you know what I'm saying, get hired to be the voice for audiobooks. Because I love to read, and I kill it. Some of the parts he's fucking up on anyway. Shit. Somebody give me the book, Horse by Donald Goins. I will read it to you guys on live. This recording is 7 hours and 21, so that would be a 7 hour, I don't think, reading it live, I don't think, nigga, we ain't gonna read the whole book at one time. We gonna do that shit in chapters. Today we'll be reading chapter 1 and 2. Tomorrow we'll do chapter 3 and 4. Fuck that, I'm not finna read that whole book in one sitting for life. My lady, maybe we'd lay in the bed and read half the motherfucking book. Sarai used to really make me read to her, Cuddy. I ain't gonna lie, I used to love that because I read like a motherfucker. So when she's the one that got me on reading Donald Goins, Keep It Solid, because she bought that book, Black Girl Lost, and dedicated it to me. Oh my God. That was the dopest. And so she made me read it to her. That was a great book. Fucked up book, but good to have that on audio. Motherfucking Daddy Cool. That's a fucked up story. That motherfucking story. And the coldest part about Donald Goins' books is these motherfuckers are true stories. Just names changed and Black Girl Lost. Why'd I put Black Girl Goins? Nigga stupid. Reads. Oh no, I started to listen to one of yours, Ralph Reed's, and you do too much. That nigga trying to act out cause you was doing too much. I don't hear that. Donald Goines, Black Girl Lost book review. What do you gotta say about it, lady?
In this book review video, I'm going to talk about another book that I've read by the author Donald Goines. I might have mentioned this book in my previous video, but I decided to redo this video because I have the actual paperback. I went online and I bought this Donald Goines Black Girl Lost from Amazon. I believe I paid around $7 or something like that for it. It's only about 200 pages, so it's kind of short, but it is a very good story. Oh my goodness, it is so good. Like, you do not want to put this book down. Once you pick it up and once you start reading, like, you gotta keep going. This is a very, very good book. I give it 10 stars out of 5. Seriously, I give it 5 stars. It is just a really good read.
I'm telling you.
So I definitely suggest that you go check
truthfully,
this
what
book
happened
out,
was I bought that
at your
book
local library
for
or
her.
buy
She
it
said it was her favorite book, so I bought the
book
book for her. And then
tell a friend. Thank
she
you for stopping by
gave
my
it back
channel
to me
and
in
checking out
dedication
this
to me,
book
and
review
made
that
me
I
read it
did.
to her. And wow.
Feel free to share it on your own page or with family members or friends. I am an author as well, so feel free to stop by my website if I can interest you in checking out one of my books that I have on Amazon. My website is the same exact.
We're going to check your book out just because you said that book is a good book. Hey, well, everybody, that's a good book. Play my music on Spotify. You don't have to pay a motherfucking thing. I get paid for the stream. Alright. Alright, I gotta really get ready for work now. You're safe. Yes. Come home tonight and get my city together.